I'm Janet Porter with some of the highlights and lowlights from the final presidential debate.
The world needs a strong America, and it is stronger now than when I came into office.
Really? Perhaps the president's greatest achievement was being able to deliver that line with a straight face.
At the very beginning, one of the challenges we've had with Iran is that they have looked at this administration and felt that the administration was not as strong as it needed to be. I think they saw weakness where they had expected to find American strength. And I say that because from the very beginning, the president in his campaign some 4 years ago said he'd meet with all the world's worst actors. In his first year, he'd sit down with Chavez and Kim Jong-il, with Castro, and with President Ahmadinejad of Iran. And I think they looked and thought, well, that's an unusual honor to receive from the President of the United States.
Interestingly, Obama has just secured the dictator vote. Yes, Chavez, Putin, and Castro have thrown their support behind Barack Obama.
And then the president began what I've called an apology tour of going to various nations in the Middle East and criticizing America. I think they looked at that and saw weakness. Then when there were dissidents in the streets of Tehran, a green revolution, holding signs saying, "Is America with us?" the president was silent. I think they noticed that as well. And I think that when the president said he was going to create daylight between ourselves and Israel, that they noticed that as well. All of these things suggested, I think, to the Iranian mullahs that, hey, we can keep on pushing along here. We can keep talks going on, but we're just going to keep on spinning centrifuges. Now there are some 10,000 centrifuges spinning uranium, preparing to create a nuclear threat to the United States and to the world. That's unacceptable for us, and it's essential for a president to show strength from the very beginning.
Nothing Governor Romney just said is true. Starting with this notion of me apologizing. This has been probably the biggest whopper that's been told during the course of this campaign. And every fact checker and every reporter who's looked at it, Governor has said this is not true.
There's only one problem with that. It's on the record, and we all heard him do it.
The reason I call it an apology tour is because you went to the Middle East and you flew to Egypt and to Saudi Arabia and to Turkey and Iraq. And by the way, you skipped Israel, our closest friend in the region. But you went to the other nations. And by the way, they noticed that you skipped Israel. And then in those nations, and on Arabic TV, you said that America had been dismissive and derisive. You said that on occasion, America had dictated to other nations. Mr. President, America has not dictated to other nations. We have freed other nations from dictators.
While President Obama repeatedly talked about how pro-Israel he was, Governor Romney was right to point out that 38 senators from within his own party have said otherwise.
The turmoil with Israel. I mean, the president received a letter from 38 Democrat senators saying the tensions with Israel were a real problem. They asked him, please repair the tension. Democrat senators.
This is where Governor Romney responded to the president by nailing it on domestic policy.
That's why we have to move forward and not go back.
I could agree more about going forward, but I certainly don't want to go back to the policies of the last 4 years. The policies of the last 4 years have seen incomes in America decline every year for middle-income families, now down $4,300 during your term. 23 million Americans still struggling to find a good job. When you came to office, 32 million people on food stamps. Today, 47 million people on food stamps. When you came to office, just over $10 trillion in debt. Now, $16 trillion in debt. It hasn't worked. You said by now we'd be at 5.4% unemployment. We're 9 million jobs short of that.
And another place where the choice is crystal clear. Do you want someone who has actually balanced budgets or someone who just keeps talking about it?
Because we've got to make sure that our economy is strong at home so that we can project military power overseas.
Bob, I'm pleased that I balanced budgets. I was in the world of business for 25 years. If you didn't balance your budget, you went out of business. I went to the Olympics that was out of balance, and we got it on balance and made a success there. I had the chance to be governor of state. 4 years in a row, Democrats and Republicans came together to balance the budget. We cut taxes 19 times, balanced our budget. The president hasn't balanced a budget yet.
And finally, the low light of the final presidential debate, where President Barack Obama is insulting, condescending, and desperate.
But I think Governor Romney maybe hasn't spent enough time looking at how our military works. You mentioned the Navy, for example, and that we have fewer ships than we did in 1916. Well, Governor, we also have fewer horses and bayonets because the nature of our military has changed. We have these things called aircraft carriers where planes land on them. We have these ships that go underwater, nuclear submarines. And so the question is not a game of battleship where we're counting ships. It's what?
Someone that desperate in debate might just be that desperate on Election Day. Perhaps why we see this administration fighting the military vote and voter identification laws. And while the dead are casting votes, fraudulent letters are being sent to Republicans in Florida telling them they're ineligible to vote. And now the United Nations is being called in to oversee our elections in several key states. That's right. Representatives from countries like Kazakhstan, ranked the lowest in civil and political liberties, are going to be determining whether our elections are fair and free. As important as getting out the vote is making sure those votes are properly cast and counted. That's why I called the Romney campaign today to volunteer and offer to be a poll worker to observe how the votes are cast and counted. If your freedom matters to you, we had better use it now.